Good afternoon, everybody, and hello. Welcome to Thank Furlough Friday. It's again. I'm sorry, I'm sure you've all heard the very sad news this morning that His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh has passed away. Didn't quite make his 100th birthday, which is a great shame. And obviously our condolences go out to the Queen and to the rest of his family. I had the great fortune to meet him on a couple of occasions. Very briefly, I have to admit, we're not on Christmas card terms or anything like that, but he was a very jovial gentleman, very good conversationalist, and he seemed genuinely interested in bookkeepers when I was talking to him. I know he was doing his job, but actually he did that pretty well. So, you know, it's very sad when somebody that's been there for so much of our lives has passed away. Anyway, on that note, Jackie, I'm sorry to hand over to you with that, but
I have quite an amusing tale, which I'm sure Leslie won't mind me telling you. Many, many years ago, Leslie worked as a steward for BOAC before it became BA, and he was very honoured to be chosen for a royal flight. And he actually flew the Duke of Edinburgh to, I think it was the Bahamas or somewhere, and back. He was out there for about 10 days on the trip with him. And he was complimented by Prince Philip on his scrambled eggs. So that is, he's always very cherished that story. So he is absolutely devastated. Right.
Well, yeah, the Duke has something over me then that I don't think I've ever sampled Leslie's scrambled eggs.
Oh, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so we have some news on furlough still. I mean, we're all hoping that furlough is now going to fizzle out. We all get back to something like normal. We all start earning a living in the same way and getting businesses back up and running. I'm just like everybody, fingers crossed that we don't jump out too soon and we're all back here in another 3 months locked down again. But anyway, but you've got something to talk to us about, Jackie.
Yes, I've got a few bits. As we're all aware, there are no new announcements at the moment coming out. They've all come out, and it's really just some updates. But there's a couple of interesting other bits have come out. So I'm just going to quickly work through them all. HMRC are working through the 1920 self-assessment tax returns that have been submitted and doing their various checks. And they have started to write to a number of self-employed individuals, asking them for some additional evidence to prove their 1920 SAT returns. And they're asking of certain proof of trade, things like 3 months bank statements and that sort of thing. So if you or your clients are getting those, then beware that, because they are actually doing some chase ups. Now, as a follow on to that, as we've spoken before, the fourth SAYS grant is starting to sort of happen fairly soon, and individuals are being contacted by HMRC as to the date in April when they can actually start to apply for the SAYS grant. And at the same time, HMRC are also contacting anybody who is either newly eligible for the third and the fourth grants or no longer eligible for the fourth grant based on their 1920 tax return. And it's now been confirmed that if you didn't put in a 1920 tax return for whatever reason, you will not be able to get the fourth SAYS grant. So watch this space if you've got anybody in that situation. I'm sure ICB members won't have clients in that situation, because those of you who've done your SAT returns for your clients will, of course, have got them all absolutely correct and everything is hunky-dory, so there shouldn't be any queries at all. A reminder now that the application is open for applying for the VAT deferral from last year. Remember, April, May, June last year, deferred VAT can now be paid for in up to 8 instalments, I think it is, or 10 instalments. The closing date for applying for that is the 21st of June, after which time I think the full deferred VAT will become payable if you haven't actually signed up to the direct debits. If you've already got some payment plans in place, you need to ring HMRC because you can't do that online if you've already got payments in place, because it can't cope with the two. Working from home allowance. Now, we mentioned this last year that for anyone who's working from home, there are now some extra allowances as to what you can and can't claim, and employers can make payments to their staff for working from home, which are not a taxable benefit in kind. Now, if you have additional costs for working from home and you're not being reimbursed in that, then you can apply through your personal tax account to have your tax codes adjusted and get the tax relief on it. But of course, it is only for additional costs for working from home. So you would probably have to be able to prove that the cost that you would have had originally, now that you're working from home, it's the increased costs only. The March CJR claims have to be put in by the 14th of April, which is next week. And there is an additional one-off payment of tax credits of up to £500 to those who have got the additional £25 a week tax credits last time. The next lot is coming out as a single payment, and everyone who's on those additional tax credits should have that £500 payment by, I think it's the 23rd of April, and confirmation is being sent out by HMRC that that's been paid. It's not being paid as a separate amount. It's going in with the standard tax credit. So if you've got anybody in that situation, check the bank accounts and you should see that extra £500 going in there. From this month, I think, anybody who buys a property in the UK who's not a UK resident is going to have to pay an additional 2% on stamp duty land tax. If you're not a UK resident. So if you've got clients who are non-UK residents and buying property in this country, just be aware that there's going to be some extra tax implications on that. From this month, the VAT, if you're not using your VAT through MTD, if you're not uploading your VAT returns through MTD, that's being moved over. Now, we've had several conversations about this. Verna did a webinar on that with me on a Technical Tuesday a couple of weeks ago. And don't forget those being moved over. So by now you should have your agent services account in place. You should have your clients moved across, but HMRC will actually migrate the accounts across for you. And you won't know that they've been migrated across until you've actually logged into your online service account and see that you can't actually access it anymore. So we've been through that before. Well, that's just a very brief reminder that that's happening. HMRC will move those over at some stage, and we really don't know when that's going to start happening. The recovery loan scheme opened on the 6th of April. That's the new business recovery scheme under COVID that's replacing the business interruption loans and the bounce back loans. And you can apply for the recovery loan if you've already had a BBills or a BBLS loan. But you may be affected into what you can apply if you already have a loan. Now, two other quick things, one of which could affect us and one which probably won't. But I picked this up on an email that came out from companies from HMRC this week. Now, Gary's mentioned this before, and it's to do with audits for large companies. Now, our members won't be involved in that. We don't do audit. Hardly any of us do the accounts for large companies unless you're employed by a large employer. But the Financial Reporting Council that oversees everything is being disbanded in 23 and replaced by the Audit, Regulatory and Governance Authority. And that's coming in from April 2023. Now, there's been a lot of press going around recently about the audits that have gone wrong. And if there are large companies that got into financial difficulties, there are these great big holes in their accounts and the audit has not picked this up. And the whole of the audit regulatory system is being changed and there are consultations going out at the moment. But what I picked up from this today, which was an interesting thing, which may or may not knock down to small businesses. This is not aimed at SMEs at the moment, only the larger companies. There is a scheme which a number of companies that are in with the large four accountancy bodies that do the audits. It's a voluntary scheme for responsibilities for directors for audit and the fairness and the accuracy of the accounts. Now, at the moment, it's a voluntary scheme that businesses have signed up for, along with people like chartered accountancy bodies and the others. But ARCA, the new body, is being given some considerably more wide-ranging powers to look into this. And it's interesting that one of the powers that I think they're going to be given is that there will be new statutory obligations for directors to be responsible for all the audits and everything that goes on. So they're widening this out to the directors. Now, it states at the moment, this is not aimed at SMEs, but it's going to be a watch this space because it could be an interesting movement into what's happening in the accountancy and the audit body. And although, as I said, our members don't have, clients probably don't have to go through an audit, the sort of thing might slip down. And when they come out with new powers for directors, it might be something that we want to look at to see whether their powers or schemes or whatever it is, ideas that we might want to use for our SMEs to make everything look better, or whatever it is. I don't know, but we'll watch this space. Now, I just want to quickly share my screen because there was an interesting thing came out. If I can share my screen, and that is this one. Companies House have issued some up-to-date guidance on being a company director. Now, as part of this, if you go onto gov.uk and actually put in being a company director, this will find this. It's a good introduction if you want to know a little bit more about what company directors do. Now, there may be people who know all this, but there may be people new into this for whom this will be quite interesting. And there is quite an interesting little video which explains what being a small company director is all about. Now, I'm not going to play that because it goes on forever. It's one of these little light-hearted things, but it's very useful, and I had a quick look at that. So if you're new into being a company director, then that might be of some interest to you. Right, let me see if I can get back and stop sharing my screen. Garry, I think that's all I've got to say at the moment. I'm just trying to work out how to stop sharing my screen up there. Right.
Okay, I'm glad you did that very, very quickly there. I was about to read some personal notes there, but never mind. Okay, I think the duties of the director are something that a number of our members probably are interested in. A lot of our members have become limited companies or formed limited companies. They haven't themselves become limited companies. They have formed limited companies. And I don't think there is enough said about what that actually means quite often. So we do incorporate it in our syllabuses to say the different types of company, doing it very much as a client rather than as individuals. So part of our onboarding process now is far more discussing the type of entities that are available, what the responsibilities are for the various entities. And I think many years ago, I've told you this before, I was asked if I had any other form of income, and I said no, and I got into trouble because dividend and income, even though it's from the same company, are classed as two different types of income, so two forms of income. So I ticked the wrong box, unfortunately, but that was my fault because I didn't read up on what a company director should do. But what I would suggest is to anybody getting any sort of advice, make sure you go to the proper source, go to government, because actually a lot of their stuff nowadays is very well written. It's very simple. Some of it goes around in circles, but a lot of it is good stuff. And I find that there are so many websites on at the moment that just make it up as they go along, or trying to attract an audience, and they make, they put headlines up. And some of the stuff they put up there is complete rubbish. So, just be careful what you do. And one of our members recently, it's slightly off the point, but did a search on a company. So she put into Google Companies House check, and she opened up the website, she did the check, she got some wrong information. But what she didn't realize was that the first site that came up on Google was not actually Companies House. It was an organization offering a Companies House similar type check. So once she realized this, after discussion, she went back onto the site, made sure she was on the proper Companies House site, on their web check, and then she got the information that was required. So make sure that you're going to a proper source. And the other thing that I find, if you're trying to find statistics, the Office for National Statistics, or ONS, tends to have pretty good statistics about virtually everything that goes on in the country. What you tend to find, if you don't use somebody like that, is that statistics can be made up on the spot. What is it? They say 67% of all statistics are made up on the spot, or something like that. So just be very careful with that. So yeah, we were saying before coming on air, Jacquie, that we hope that the furlough is actually winding down a little bit now, that we can put this one into history. Who knows? We're all this month, and certainly by the middle of next month, we're all going to be unleashed, and goodness only knows what will happen. Hopefully the jab has sort of restricted the growth to a huge extent, and hopefully we won't be back in lockdown ever again, but we will wait and see. Meanwhile, and I've already been asked this by a number of people, what is going to happen to Thank Furlough It's Friday? Well, it won't be Thank Furlough It's Friday, but it has become so popular amongst our members that we will be doing something on Fridays, rest assured, as we will still be doing throughout the week. So Jacquie will do her Technical Tuesdays when there's something specific that she needs to talk about, and you'll get notice of that. Those of you who joined us, and in your great number actually, earlier this week for Ian Holloway's Wages Wednesday, whether or not it's always a Wednesday, I don't know, but certainly we are committed to at least a monthly program with him. But also we're looking at other training issues and various things that he can help us with. And so, yeah, we're going to be using him a lot more. And we've got a couple of other people that we're keeping under our hat at the moment. They'll be looking at all sorts of things that you do in addition to your main work of being a bookkeeper. And the other thing that came out, I know you said you were watching, Jacquie, but something that came out on the questions was, what do you think of this particular piece of software or that particular piece of software? And our members are finding at the moment that different softwares are treating, particularly payroll in this case, completely differently. So again, I mean, you and I have had this discussion so many times before. How can the figure be different depending on which software package you're using? And I think it normally only runs to pence or a small number of pounds, but it shouldn't be different at all. So we will be looking at that. We are non-partisan, so we can give you the truth as we see it, but you know, we'll see what we're going to do on that. And I have asked quite regularly if any of you have got ideas of what you would like to see, and other than you'd like to see more success stories from members, or even you know, disaster stories from members and how they got out of it, etc., you appear to like to know what your peers have been doing. Other than that, I don't think we've had many suggestions at all. You're just sort of saying, well, you're the institute, tell us what we need to know, and we'll wait for it. So I'm pleased with that in many ways, I suppose, which is good. One thing I did want to mention, as I've started to try and do regularly recently, if I haven't already lost the page, is talk to you about what's coming up on the branches this coming month, rest of this month. Branches are there for anybody at any time to go along and see, and you can normally pick them up later, or you can pick the notes up, etc. So if you are in, I don't know, Liverpool, and there isn't a meeting in Liverpool, you can go to somebody else's meeting if you want to. Obviously, when COVID has stopped and everything isn't virtual, it's actual physical meetings, you won't be able to do that. But if you attend these meetings, and the meetings are getting good attendances of people from all sorts of areas, I think we're discussing it at the moment, but I think there will have to be some form of hybrid system. So part face-to-face for those of you who haven't met anybody for 12 months, and those of you who want to remain with a COVID style, if I can call it that, virtual meeting, then I think we can't ignore the fact that so many people are using this at the moment, and it has increased accessibility. It's hugely increased the number of people attending meetings because of that. I think we will be continuing in some way or another. Obviously, at the moment, there is conversation about everything being back to normal from the middle of May. I can't see it, but we will see. And already people are ringing in and saying, well, what about conference? Well, I think this year we will probably stick to a virtual conference. We have looked at some events, venues. The problem is that so many people are now trying to make up for lost time. The events venues are getting full. We are hoping that because it's our 25th year, we will be able to do the Lucas at least as a face-to-face dinner. But we're on second option in a number of different places, and getting a first option is just proving to be very, very difficult. So again, watch this space. Everybody in the communications department, marketing, are really trying their hardest to find us somewhere good. We've got some great ideas, but we just have to wait and see. So last night there was a very successful meeting in Lincolnshire. Somebody said it is actually a record number. I haven't quite got the number here, but it was a really good number of people. So Yeah, sorry, Lucy, it didn't all fall apart when you left. I'm sure you wouldn't want it to. You've set everything firmly on a good pathway there, so that's fantastic, and that was good to see. But we've got quite a few coming up. So where are we? We've got South Glamorgan or Cardiff branch. That's on Monday, 12th, as is Devon, the Exeter branch. Then we've got Cambridge on the 13th. We've got Glasgow on the 14th. Manchester on the 15th, Aberdeenshire on the 19th, Gloucestershire on the 19th, Oxfordshire 21st, East Sussex 21st, and Avon branch on the 27th. And looking at the numbers here, they're already in double figures for everything. So, you know, they are going well. I sometimes think branch meetings sounds a bit old-fashioned, really. You know, it's a bit like the union branches or something like that. But actually, it does what it says on the tin. It's get together with the local people. You get to hear what's happening. You get good presentations. You get to socialise. You get to ask questions. And if those questions can't be answered, then the branch chairs have a link through to council or to ICB to try and get some questions answered for you if you don't particularly want to approach ICB yourself. So I would urge you to join in with those, and we'll see, as I say, as we move forward. But the ICB team all of them will be going to one of the branch meetings, at least one meeting a year in future. So you might, when you join a meeting, see one of the ICB team. They're not there to make any sort of presentation. They're there to listen, to see what it's all about. I want them to learn about ICB from the members' point of view. I want to see them to see what you all look like, because as we haven't had a conference for a couple of years now, you know, they've missed out on meeting you all, and you know, they've lost that pleasure. So they'll be joining in, at least seeing you virtually. So Jacquie, I understand that the Mount family bookkeeping tradition is continuing. A certain lady has passed the payroll exam.
Yes. I have to say, it's you do the mother bear thing when your offspring are doing exams, and because of my position at ICB, every time my daughter does an exam, I have to literally tie my hands behind my back not to look at anything that have anything to do with it. So she is very good. She does do it all her own. She always has. I mean, yeah, she's passed the payroll, which is of great relief. So yeah, she's doing good. She's doing good.
Good. Yeah. No. Yeah. Just, I mean, Jacquie mentioned it. I wasn't going to, but you know, we've always had this thing with Jacquie that she knew her daughter wanted to go into bookkeeping, but she has gone to an extreme length to make sure that she has no involvement whatsoever in exams or tests or homeworks or anything. So you know, well done, Jacquie. It's
I have to say, I know she's not watching, and she doesn't often tune into this because she's with a client on Friday, or she's working for a client on Friday. But one of the reasons she went self, well, there were two reasons why she became a bookkeeper. And actually, they were for slightly odd reasons. One is because she makes a terrible employee. When she was younger, she was an atrocious employee. She has no patience with bosses who she thinks are not good. But the other one was that she wanted the flexibility, because when the boys were little and her husband was working away so much, she needed the flexibility of being able to not be fully employed, and actually apart from doing various other jobs for people she knew, the bookkeeping was one. And it's interesting because she did actually work for me for a couple of years before I came back to ICB. She then took on some of my clients, and yeah, she's loving it, absolutely loving it. But like everyone else, she has her lovely clients, she has her nightmare clients, and they drive her to distraction sometimes. So yeah, so I get it from both ends. I get it from members and I get it from her as well.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, good luck to her. I think we're always going to have bad clients. It doesn't matter what you're in. I mean, I've been in business or I've been employed in various roles for years where, if all the good ones, if all the bad ones could be as good as the good ones, you'd have a great life. You just cross your bad ones your good ones don't turn into the bad ones, because then you're
No, we've got a couple going on at the moment with members where they're having the issues with clients. I always find the bookkeeping queries are very easy to deal with. The difficult client ones are not so easy. But anyway, Interestingly enough, on the chat line, Sean Seller said, yes, please, virtual meetings, please. And Donna has asked, just out of interest, what are the average viewing numbers for Thank Furlough It's Friday? Thanks and have a good weekend. You know what the actual average is. It's different for who watches live and the number of people that watch it later, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't think it's dropped below 1,000, but I think when we did the first furloughs, it was, if I remember rightly, between 3,000 and 4,000. But I'll get one of our clever people to work that out. I know I'm listening in at the moment, but I want to have a look at the figures first and just see, because my marketing team, great people as they are, keep giving me this fantastic breakdown about clicks and flow throughs and views and unique this, that, and the others and everything else. And they did give me a figure earlier about the number of unique visitors we'd had to ICB TV over the year. I've forgotten what it was, but it was a good number, bearing in mind the size of our membership. And there's nothing else that attracts people as much as ICB TV and the webinars that we put on. So I'm really pleased with that. So I think Tax Filer does quite well out of our webinars. Some of the other software companies have done quite well. But yeah, I think the thing is, it's provided we give people something that they want to hear, then they will come on and listen. We've tried to analyze it as to who listens, why you listen. And as always, it's really rather difficult because you think, oh, it's definitely got to be the subject. So you do something technical, you get a big number. Then you have a day when you're chatting to a member, you get another big number. Then you bring, it just varies so much. But as long as Jackie and I aren't talking to ourselves, we'll do something, because if nothing else, we enjoy it. And as I've said before, Jackie's become somewhat of a media speciality. So that's great. I'll try and fish out some numbers and have a look. But it's the sort of number that we can't turn our back on. It's something that we wouldn't want to. So what I'm trying to do now is decide what ICB TV Mark II will look like when we have general topics rather than the recent COVID instigated panic measures and everything else. And we need to make sure that people still want it, but let us know. I mean, you can tell us now if you'd like to see something done differently. We've had a few people ask if we can do something at the weekend. Not against that, but I just want to make sure that we're not doing it for 2 or 3 people. And for most of the programs, they're good enough to look at later. You can't ask a live question, but you can still ask questions of us. So let's see how that goes. And anyway, we've had lots of suggestions with my alliterations. There are some things that I just can't get, like Friday and Technical Tuesday. What was the other one? Wages Wednesday or something or other. Brian, I won't give you his surname, but Brian came up with, what about Sod It Saturday, when it's all gone wrong and you just want somebody to talk to, give you a
I like that. Right, can we pick up, there's quite a few questions coming in. Zoe's asked, can I ask a quick question about cash basis for tax, please? Can we still use the 31st of March as an end of year date instead of the 5th of April? Yes, I think you still can. I mean, to be honest, if you're looking at the software, you're going to get your accounts go up to the end of the month anyway for most of them, and you start and end at the start of the month. So yeah, as far as I'm aware, you can still do it up to the 31st of March. Peter says, thanks for organising Wages Wednesday. Ian packed a lot of info in a short space of time, which was great. Garry did mention how fast he talks. I know I rattled through my notes today, but I always work on the basis that you can go back and watch it again and catch it the second time. Right, there's one on conference there, Garry, but let's have a look at some of the other technicals. Jim says, as employers are starting to return to work after being on furlough, some employers are finding that their staff have been working elsewhere and are therefore unable to return. Other than P45 them, is there any way of the employer being reimbursed for their costs, employers' NIC and pensions, etc.? Now, this is an interesting one. I think this might be happening quite a lot, actually, because my concern about that question, well, firstly, the answer to that is no, I don't think there's any way you can reclaim it, because you've had them on your payroll, you've claimed the furlough, and therefore you've had to pay the employer's NIC and pensions. Now, the problem obviously that I've got with that and the whole concept is the cost where they've not actually, well, they've been working. I wonder how much contact the employer has had with those furloughed staff, or have they just let them go off and be furloughed for months and not actually contacting them and just carried on paying them furlough? I don't know. But as far as I'm aware, there is no way of claiming that back, because you've paid them, you've got to pay the employer's NIC and the pension costs. And I think that might be a very interesting one, that one, Garry.
Somebody will have made a bit of money out of that by the sound of it, if they've got a second job, not told anybody. Yeah. I
mean, to a certain extent, when it started, the government did say that you can go and work elsewhere, which we all thought was a bit, well, it was always going to open up, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with working elsewhere when you're on furlough. Yeah. But it has cost the employer money, and that once you started paying the employer's NICs and pension, especially, I wonder what type of business it was, and whether since flexible furlough came in, whether it's a business that's been completely closed down in all that time. Interesting.
I don't know. I mean, I thought the original idea, and I'm trying to think back now, it's obviously 12 months ago, but I thought the original idea was to allow people to go and work in things like Tesco and Amazon so that delivery could be made. I'm not sure if, let's have a second career and you'll get an 80% furlough on top.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't quite know where you stand with that one, because that's almost a legal thing that, I'm just trying to think back about the working hours as to whether something came out in the early days about them being available to be back to work for you. Yeah. And should they, and if they're not available to work for you, if you call them back, are they now in breach of their contract? The thing is, yes, you can P45 them now because they're not coming back, but I'm not sure how you put them in breach of their contract, because they weren't, basically, if they're working elsewhere, they're not employed, shouldn't have been employed by you.
They should also give notice still, because they'll still be under a contract, like you say. So if the contract says that they have to give a month's notice or a week's notice or whatever, I mean, technically they have to be available to work that notice.
Absolutely. But interestingly enough, under the current regulations from the 1st of December, if somebody hands their notice into you and they're working their notice, albeit on furlough, you have to pay them full notice period for 100%. You can't pay them at 80% furlough. So that is an interesting one.
Yeah,
Susanna's, it's odd, isn't it? Might need to look into that a bit further.
Yeah,
I think.
So if you've come out of furlough and somebody immediately disappears, you've avoided paying that extra 20% if they're not giving you notice. But under the terms of the contract, they have to give you notice, or you have to give notice. So
I'm just wondering if you can get round it by a breach of contract, but I still don't think you're going to be able to get the cost back that you've incurred, and they are fairly substantial, I think.
Susanna's
got a question here. Now that shielding has officially ended, I have a client with an employee who has been on furlough throughout but still wants to shield. The client is happy to let this continue while the furlough scheme is still active. But as they technically no longer need to shield, although in reality it may still be sensible, are they eligible? The answer to that, Suzanne, is I think yes, they are still eligible to be furloughed. That has gone on all the time, although they don't have to shield. If someone is still feeling unsafe about coming to work, then I think they can still be furloughed. I think that's still on the cards. Right. Dilip has said something. I said something about due for a pay rise last April, but this was postponed due to lockdown. But there's no other question there on that, Dilip, so I'm not quite sure whether you want to come back and ask that one again. Jim says this relates, especially to the hospitality industry, on furlough with the pub and finding their work in Tesco's. So they've gone to work in Tesco's because the pubs have been closed. It's an interesting one, that one. So they've obviously decided to stay with Tesco's and not go back to the pub when it opens.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay, now there's I'm just getting rid of the ones we've answered.
Well, we had a note there to say Diane Muller is listening in. Hello, Diane. Nice to hear from you.
Diane.
In Vancouver. It's 6:35 in the morning, so very nice of you to tune in. Actually, Diane, I'll get you to come on air at some stage and tell us what life's like in Vancouver and what's happening with the bookkeepers over there. I know you are the leading light of bookkeepers in Vancouver, in the whole of Canada. So if you're up for that, please drop me a note and we'll be in touch. And it'd be nice to talk to you again after probably, well, certainly since before lockdown. So yeah, let's have a chat.
Oh, lovely, you're online, Diane. Naomi said, I'd love to learn more about downloading and exporting bank statements at some ICB event in the future. This is something some of my clients struggle with and often takes up a lot of my time trying to help them. That'll be an interesting one for Technical Tuesday. I'll mark that down for Technical Tuesday, Naomi. Maybe have a look at that. But I'll probably have to get a practicing bookkeeper on. What I might do is I'll organise it and get one of the practicing bookkeepers, maybe one of our branch chairs that I know is very good at doing that sort of thing, and to come on and do that with me, because I do bank downloads. I do help out with one of my daughter's clients, just to keep my hand in really and help her. And yeah, so I know how it works now. Right, a couple of questions here. Joe asks, will it be just conference this year? Or what about a virtual Inspire tour?
We're working on everything at the moment, to be honest with you. We've been waiting to hear what happens. We had been told there might be a loosening of things, in which case we can get round. Certainly next year, I mean, obviously it's our 21st anniversary on the 1st of November this year. So Global Bookkeeping Week, which starts on the 8th of November, is going to be pretty big. We are going to be doing some sort of conference. As I said, it's still likely to be virtual because we can't really get any venue. But for the whole of the 12 months, for the next 12 months, starting in November, you know, I'd certainly like to get round to meet more of you in the regions and do some sort of, whether it's an inspiring tour or what, I don't know, but certainly I'd like to do that anyway. So we will be doing something this year. We are looking at a special payroll conference. We're looking at another technical conference. So those, I think, will be brought together into something that hopefully inspires you all. I know how much you like it. And I know that, you know, normally we get a good 800 or so people to those. But yeah, and we will be doing something. I think it definitely will be virtual this year. And then next year, as I say, we might do something a little bigger. So Jacquie will remember in the days when AML first started, anti-money laundering first started. I think, Jacquie, if I remember rightly, we did 26 centres one year. So June and I were doing a session on anti-money laundering, and you did a session alongside that for students, and you and Leslie were running through the syllabus from start to finish. Yeah. So we only just survived that. I think
that's right. Oh, gosh, those were the years.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Yeah, we drove a few miles. We drove a few miles. Sorry, my internet connection is very dodgy here today. We drove a few miles over those periods, didn't we? And
I'm trying to persuade June for us to travel the country in a way, Winnebago emblazoned with ICB.
Oh.
I don't think she's coming across, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure I'm up to it either. But it would be nice to make 50, 60 stops in the year. So we'll do something.
They are well. Any of our staff that have been on those trips know how exhausting they are, but they are such great fun coming out, meeting you all. It's lovely. But
yeah, it is, and you know, we get a fantastic welcome whenever we come out, and you know, we get some the occasional grumpy one, but you know, that's what life's about. Running an institute, we have to take the rough with the smooth, as it were. And actually, I mean, nobody, I don't think, has ever been negative for the sake of being negative. There's always been something there. We learn from it. You know, we can't claim to get it right all of the time, and yeah, although it hurts occasionally, you've got to be big enough to say, yeah, okay, I take that one on board. We'll do something about it. And I like to think that if we've been told about something, we've always done something about it. We've improved, we've changed, we've come at it from a different direction or something or other. But you know, the institute is its members. So therefore we have to talk to members, and that's and as Jackie said, it's one of the best bits of all. I mean, this is as close as we're getting to it at the moment. We love this, even though, you know, we can't see you out there. I can definitely sense you out there on some of the points that you're raising on the questions, etc. So yeah, long may we remain in communication. Anything else, Jackie, there? I haven't been looking into your side.
Yes, there's a couple come in. Pauline is asking, when she listened to Ian, he was going to have the questions sent out and answer them. I know he's still working through those. How are we going to get the answers out to you by those? I'm not sure, but I think if you were identified, we can contact you. We will. If not, we will certainly get. One technical question here: if an employee who started work on the 1st of August and worked for 3 months, then was furloughed until now, and the employee has just informed the employer that they are now 6 months pregnant and haven't given their MAT B1 form, can they still claim maternity pay? I can't remember if there's a deadline by which, this is what we need Ian for. I can't remember if there's a deadline by which you have to receive the MAT B1 form. But if there is, don't forget there are all the other criteria. So was the start date with more than so many weeks? Have you had the form? And I'm not aware that there is a limit on the form, that it has to be given by so many weeks. And there are so many criteria you have to fulfill. It's to do with income and everything. Now, the one thing I will say is if they do go on maternity pay, on maternity leave, and they claim their maternity pay, you've got to look at carefully at the average weekly earnings because of the furlough and how that works. So you'd have to look into all that sort of thing. So
I think you need another filling in the meter, Jack. You keep disappearing there. So, but
yes, I'm sorry. My internet access is very shaky here. It was last time I was on. So
well, the fact that Diane Muller was on air listening to us flashed up, so I just read the top line, but I'm just looking at the whole thing now. She's saying the news of Prince Philip is hitting Canada. My condolences to Garry, obviously. Thank you very much, and to the rest of us. Yeah, I mean, he was a character, and I do like characters, as you all know. I like somebody that's got a few things to say, and he like I was missing on the day we did political correctness, I think, at school. So, you know, we occasionally drop ourselves in it. But yeah, I mean, it must be really difficult to know exactly what you've got to do for the rest of your life, and you can't go left and you can't go right, you can't do anything, you can't say anything. Obviously, it's worse for the Queen and for you know, the next generations coming forward. But yeah, it's not a job that's easy, but they do it to the best of their ability, and I have to say, the Queen has done a magnificent job. Yeah, I'm sure her family will rally around her, but on the occasions that I've seen the two of them together, you know, they did work very well together. It was very close, and it's a shame, you know, missing the other half is always difficult. And particularly, presumably, as she won't be allowed a lot of time to grieve, the press will be wanting her out making statements and waving off the balcony or something or other in a stupidly quick time. But anyway, never mind. I'm sorry. I'll get off that particular soapbox before I fall off it or I'm thrown off it. So, thank you.
Kirsty said, hopefully you will win an award, the award from PQ magazine. Is that coming up? That's coming up quite soon, isn't it, Garry? The PQ awards.
29th of the month. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that. I was only told earlier on that I've been nominated. Yeah, I'm not sure where that one came from. Yeah. Anyway, never mind. I'll do my best. I'm there for the Institute, obviously, you know, it's not for me, as they say. But yeah, I'm up against some strong people, so I don't expect to win, but if I do, it'd be lovely. Very nice. I don't think I've ever won anything like that. No, for a while anyway. Anyway, excellent. So anything else, Jackie, on there? Are we done on the question?
Jim has said this might be more relevant to technical. Yeah, there's one more coming in. Relevant to Technical Tuesday. If an employee was on last year's national living wage and paid furlough 80%, what happens in April this year as it's the national living wage has increased? the fact that the national living wage has increased doesn't mean that the furloughs increased. You have to go back to the dates and the average pay and when they were first furloughed. So that rule hasn't changed. So the fact that they've gone up doesn't mean you pay them more. You don't pay them at the new rate, you pay them at the old rate. So, and if we have a technical question, what is the best number or email address? Well, I would say either ring the Institute and you'll be put through to the best person. And if all else fails, it's normally me, and then I can forward it if I can't or don't, it's not my area. But we have various people answering various questions, or you can email into member services, Garry, member services at bookkeepers.org.uk. And again, your email will be forwarded.
Yeah. I think it depends on the technical query, and as you said, I mean, we've exchanged emails this week about a number of matters, but you said you are getting asked now an increasingly varied amount of questions, which some of which are not your sphere. So we're retraining our team at the moment to try and narrow it down so that we get you to the right person straight away. The unfortunate thing, if you like, about having Jacquie on board for her is that if anybody mentions the word technical, they shove them through to Jacquie so quickly because they know Jacquie will answer as much as she can and as often as she can. But really, we need to take a bit more care and make sure that it is something that Jacquie wants to answer. And I think Jacquie, payroll is one of the things that you said. You have to keep so up to date with payroll that you've lost that as a specialism. So now Ian's on board. We've got somebody else doing that.
Yeah, and again with things like certain taxation things where I don't keep that much up to date anymore because I don't do it all the time, and I miss some of the nuances. But it's interesting to note that that over even the past 4 years, I think that the variety of technical questions that are coming through has increased almost exponentially in the last 3 to 4 years. You are doing such a wide variety of jobs now that you weren't doing 5 years ago. And it does mean that we've got to be aware, but also please be aware, Gary's spoken about this before, and I know Ian spoke about it on Wednesday, this new tax advisor consultation that's going on. The whole thing about the advice we give you, as well as the advice you give your members, all falls within that category. So everybody has to be very careful because everybody is liable. So that's something, as Garry said, that the Institute's looking into about how we're actually going to deal with this going forward.
Yeah, and I think it's coming from a number of different quarters that a one-off qualification is not good enough anymore. People are going to be expected to be tested, not just CPD, but good, solid CPD that's got some sort of exam at the end of it. So we are working on that. We'll be making an announcement shortly. Yeah, you know, it might mean you've got to do an annual test. I know a lot of you would love that because a lot of you, funnily enough, still do mocks. The number of our fellows who do a mock every now and then just to keep their hand in is fantastic. It takes up a bit of time, but yeah, you know, I say this quite often. If you thought your doctor passed his exams 20 years ago and hadn't done anything since, you'd be very worried if you went to him for a diagnosis. And it's the same with bookkeepers. We've got to keep up to date. There's not a great deal changing in bookkeeping, but having listened to Ian talking the other day, God, that's so confusing on payroll. There are so many different nuances with payroll that I'm really glad we've got him on board. And we'll, you know, our exams are very popular. Well over a third of our members are also payroll people. And yeah, they have to keep up to date, so that we're almost going to have to give them a huge extra section of information to keep them up to date alongside their bookkeeping. So as I said last week, it's not last week, because it's this week, it was Wednesday, wasn't it? It seems like a week ago already. We now have the hub for payroll, so have a look on there. That's under the resources section. You know, that resources section is just growing and growing and growing, you know, but it's good stuff. It's there. And before you go paying some silly software company oodles of pounds a month to get all this information, just have a look, because I think if you need to know it, it is there somewhere, and hopefully you'll find it useful. And if ever you've got any suggestions for saying, well, look, I couldn't find this because, would you like, you know, can you do something different in the search? Can you put different keywords in or something? Just talk to us. We'll always have a go. You know, it's there for you. So if you can't use it, it's a waste of our time and yours. So let's make sure together we get it right.
And adding on to that, Samantha, your question is very specific. So we'll pick up on that one outside, Samantha. And Diane's come back and said, predictions are that the bookkeeping profession will grow 11% between now and 2024.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's very similar to the predictions that I've heard. It certainly is growing, but I think we need to make sure that it grows with the right people, and it's not just a lot of people thinking, "Oh, this is a great thing to be. I'll suddenly become a bookkeeper" or something like that. You know, it's got to be the right people, and I'm not saying that because we're an institute and we get membership fees from people, regardless of whether you're joining us or whoever. I think the profession has to get its act in order. You know, we've got to make sure that there aren't any loopholes, because, you know, the small business person doesn't know one bookkeeper from another. Hopefully they'll say, well, you've got the ICB qualification, so that means something. They can look at our website, you can check you out. But I think a lot of small businesses are so desperate to get rid of these damn books that they hate with a vengeance, they'll take anybody on. And so we've got to educate businesses as well. But there are 5 million businesses we've got to get to. And it's quite a big number to try and get to on the sort of budgets that we've got. But, you know, we're trying it. We're looking at PR activities. We're looking at all sorts of external activities for small businesses. I know we support a lot of the branches in the counties where, you know, Hereford Means Business, for example, which is an exhibition. We've provided materials to go to that. Some stuff down in Devon. So, you know, we need your help as well. So if you've got something that's happening in your area that you think is useful, we may not be able to do anything at short notice, but at least we'll know about it and can diary it forward for next year and build it into the plan. Jackie, anything else, or are we?
Someone's asking for the one quick one, the AML email that you mentioned last week. Email for the AML?
Ah, yes. Right. It isn't ready yet. It will be coming out shortly. Like everything else. We thought it was a straightforward. Let's ask two.
For now, member service.
Let's ask 2 questions.
Member services a little before.
And it turned out to be at least 10 or 12 or 15 or whatever. So we're going through that at the moment. It will be coming out shortly. Yeah. Don't worry, it is on its way. And if you've known that you've got something which is incorrect on your record already, don't wait for this form to come out. Get in touch and get it changed. That will be, you know, it's something that we want to do. It's something that we feel honor bound to do. And actually, it's something which we're now legally eventually going to be required to do anyway. So, yeah, please, any help you can give us with that. I mean, just think about what your company does. Has it changed? Do we know about those changes? Are we sitting in our, well, I was going to say our office, our various homes and other things, thinking that you're one thing when in fact your business is now another? And I think that's the important one. As somebody said to me this week, well, I've got a practice license. I was Jane Doe Bookkeeping, and I've now become Jane Doe Bookkeeping Limited. Why do I need a new practice license? Because it's a different entity. It's a legal entity that you've changed. So we've got to have you with that proper entity because we regulate you. I mean, we are totally responsible for you if you do something wrong. You know, we're supposed to make sure that you don't, and we do whatever we can to help you. And we can only do that if we've got the information. So it's not Big Brother looking over you. It's not us trying to find out about your family life or anything else. And we're not yet asking for your inside leg measurement, but we are asking for pertinent things which we need to know in order to make judgments and to assist you and guide you. So it will be out shortly. I hope by this time next week that it's out, and that by then we'll get some feedback as well, so we can discuss it during the day.
And Suzanne has asked if there is an update on whether or not we need to send updated photo ID, and where can we upload this securely?
Yes, you sent me an email, didn't you? Sorry about that. I haven't responded. I've taken a couple of days off this week, which is not quite the same as anybody else's day off because I've still been doing things like TV and answering a few emails. I haven't got around to yet. Sorry about that, Suzanne. There will be an update coming shortly, but what we're trying to do at the moment is find a faster way of doing it, an easier way of doing it. So if we've got an old ID for you, yes, we will require one. But I think I mentioned last week, Steve Hardwick is going into sort of a semi-retirement with us. He's becoming an inspector now. He's stepping away from being our director of AML because he came to us on it with it being a part-time job, which is all he wanted, but it has become a full-time plus job. So Mike Jardine is taking over that role. Mike has been our chief inspector for a long time, so I've lost that joke. I can't call him Chief Inspector Mike anymore, but he is joining us. He is coming in now as the full-time director. So Steve will be doing some visits. And Steve's wife, Jane, who we found out obviously about because of taking on Steve. She was a former intelligence officer with the police. And she has been absolutely fantastic in putting together the intelligence and doing investigations with us and looking at your records and talking to you about what's missing and what you need to do to change things. She obviously, because Steve is retired, she is doing the same. They want to go and walk coast to coast across the Pennines, I understand, and various other things. We say they are thoroughly entitled to enjoy their life. They can't get away from ICB altogether. But Jane will be ceasing her role with us as well. And we've actually got 2 new people coming in, also police investigations officers, intelligence officers, and they'll be working closely with Mike. So the fact that Jane did such a good job part-time, we need 2 full-time people to replace her, I think says it all. So we're sorry to see them go. We had a bit of a sort of a leaving staff virtual ceremony earlier in the week when we wished them well and sent them off. So they are all going to be around. But what I'm trying to do is not give the new people too many answers to the questions yet. I want to sit around the table with them, or virtual table, and talk about how best we can handle this, which way they want to approach it, because they will want to do things slightly differently. Nothing wrong with how it's been done so far, but new people in always have slightly different ways of doing things. So we're going to do that. So I think they join the first week, and the 2 new people join the 1st of May. Mike's already got his feet under the table. In fact, I have a meeting with him straight after this one, and you will be getting new instructions about when you need to upload things and how to upload things. But everything that we do is secure anyway. And just so that you know, when you send us your DBS or you send us your passport or anything like that, they're kept on file, and not every member of the team can see it, only those people who need to see it. So we can't all look at it and, if it's anything like my photograph, have a bit of a laugh about it. But no, we don't do that at all. So we do look after you. We take your data protection very, very seriously, obviously, and we have a lady who helps us as our data protection officer, Felly, and she's constantly looking at what we do and how we do it. So we'll be there. So a very long apology for not responding to you directly, Suzanne, but and I will get some answers to you quickly.
And the couple of questions that have come up from Dilip and some of the others, I've taken a copy of them. I will get back to you directly on those. And I think the last one, Garry, is from Yolanda, that says, appreciate the effort from ICB with the new payroll support. I have my level 3 diploma in payroll management and need to be updated to cope with legislation changes. So yeah, I think it's very right that we do that. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm constantly amazed how much you all know anyway. I said was it last Friday when we'd had a query from a client, and our member had sent us copies of the email she sent to her clients over COVID. I mean, they were so professional. They were to the point. They told the client exactly what he or she was supposed to do. And, I was really proud to have that person as a member. I thought, this is great, absolutely wonderful. The fact that the member had then totally ignored the advice and claimed incorrectly was typical, but at least we now know that our client our member had nothing at all to do with that. He was completely in the clear. And yeah, but as I say, the standard of the information that was given out was exemplary, fantastic, and so yeah, I'm really pleased. We've got some damn good members out there. Well done, all of you. Jacquie, I think probably time has come for us to go. We've had an hour.
I think that's it. Yes. Yes, I think we've answered all the questions. Anyone that I haven't answered, I've got listed, so I'll come back to you on those, and we'll pass some of them on to Ian and see if he can answer them. Yeah. Yeah,
and so on a sad day for many of us, we hope you have a good weekend. I think the weather is, well, depends which part of the country you're in. It's going to either take a dive or get slightly warm. Nothing to write too much about yet. Michal, Dave, yes, congratulate. Thank you for that, Michal, and reciprocated. And to everybody, have a lovely weekend. We will see you next week. And be careful, be good, be ICB. Thank you very much indeed. Bye, everybody.
Bye.